This video will examine the use of Windows users within CompleteFTP server. In front of me I have the CompleteFTP manager. The users tab is open and there's an add user link here. In a previous video we've looked at adding non-Windows users. Brings up a dialog and we can enter the username and so on. I want to look here at using Windows users. Non-Windows users are internal to CompleteFTP, whereas Windows users are part of the Windows operating system. They're added to the Windows server separately to CompleteFTP, or they might be part of a domain. So if I choose the Windows users menu item, what happens? I get a dialog asking to add Windows users. I can either, in the professional or enterprise editions, list the local users of this server, or I can enter a domain name. Optionally, I can enter some login details to query that domain and a size limit if it's a very large domain, but I can list domain users to add, and I can explicitly add any domain users or local users. Here I'm going to just get a list of users from the local server. There's not many because it's my own personal machine. A username called Bruce B. I'll add that. Apply, and you can see that Bruce B is now listed as a Windows user on this CompleteFTP server instance. So if I FTP to the local host, a user of Bruce B, I type in my Windows password. I'm logged in. My home directory is /home/BruceB. I just logged out of that session there. So that's how you add a Windows user. Now that's not the only way to use Windows users. You might have an entire domain or a number of Windows users and you don't wish to explicitly add all of them one by one to the server. Let's go to General User Settings. There's a few different settings there, but the important one to note is Automatic Windows Users. They're available in all editions of CompleteFTP, but you can only configure them for the professional and enterprise editions. Have it enabled here. You can see there's an entry for default Windows domain, so you can add a default domain. And what that means is Windows users from that domain can log in without having to specify the domain in front of their username. If I go to Configure, it allows me to add some permitted Windows groups, and those groups can be local groups or Active Directory groups. So that controls the allowed Windows groups of users that log in. So that's how you enable automatic Windows users. Now, when they log in as a templated user called default Windows. If I go to the Windows users again, I show the system users. There's a few there, but you'll see there's one called default Windows. And their home folder is set to a folder called /MyDocuments, and that's a Windows special folder. So all automatic Windows users, when they log in, they get the configuration settings from this default Windows user. But because it's a special folder called My Documents, each individual user gets their own My Documents folder, so that they all have their own individual folder from Windows. I'll turn off the system users and just show you a couple of other settings. There's a setting for allowing public HTTP access in the general user settings. Often for your server you will want anyone to be able to access your HTTP pages, your public ones. By default, allow anonymous FTP users is off. You can enable anonymous FTP. That's a traditional user in a FTP server that we support, and it allows anyone to log in and download files from a public directory. But by default, we don't allow it. And finally, users folder, home folder appears as root. If I check that one, apply the changes. If I log in to the server again, log in to localhost, you will see that my current directory is /. My home directory is actually my root directory now. If I quit, go back, change that setting so that now user's home directory appears as root is unchecked. If I log in again, look at my home directory and you'll see it's /home/BruceB. The /home/BruceB is a traditional Unix way of navigating a file system and setting up a file system. So all the users are under /home. Each user only has permission in /home/ the username, but sometimes people prefer to have users only able to see their own directory, that is, their home directory is the root directory of /, and so that setting can be used in that way. A couple of other user settings I'll mention is password policies. You can allow users to change their passwords. You can do all kinds of settings, minimum number of characters, mixed case, must contain a digit, must contain a special character. You can even store encrypted passwords for non-Windows users, just in case you want to be able to retrieve passwords. That's not recommended because normally passwords are stored as a hash and they cannot be reverse engineered. But in some circumstances you may wish to be able to retrieve user passwords, and you can store encrypted passwords, selecting that option if that's something that you want to do. For now though, that covers the use of Windows users within CompleteFTP.